Hello, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a space arcade game in Scratch. It's going to look a little something like this at the end. We have our little main character here, and when you hit the space bar, you'll have lasers that shoot from it, or any type of projectile really. And anytime you hit the obstacle, you'll be gaining points, and after 30 seconds, you'll have a high score of points to see at the end and maybe beat the score next time. So let's just see what the ending looks like here. Get as much points as I can. And time's up. Alright, so 250 points, not bad. So, you've probably already walked through some of the material that you found on the Google Classroom that is available. This is one of the first projects that is really good to start. So just kind of taking a peek on what's inside this project before we get started. We've got the main character, which is the space dog. We've got some title screens here, and then the projectile, which is the laser, and the obstacle. So just let's see here. So why don't we just start fresh? We'll start from scratch. No pun intended. Alright, so when you log into Scratch, scratch.mit.edu, you'll have your sign-in, which is provided. So what that looks like is it'll be blank here. You'll just click sign in, your username, and then your password. And then as soon as you're ready, you'll just click create, and it will open a blank Scratch project. You can name this project whatever you'd like. It's often recommended just to put your name, so that way you can find it later in the project folder of the account. Now, so a few things before we get building. Over here on the left is the toolbar. This is where you're going to find all types of different blocks. These are meant for coding. You're going to be putting these blocks into this workspace, and anytime you put something into this workspace, it'll affect the play area over here. So you're kind of moving from left to right. Down here is your library. So any type of objects that are in the scene interacting with each other, those are going to be found here. You've got backdrops. This is where you can find what the background is going to look like. You've got all sorts of options. Okay, so additionally, you've got different types of toolbars if you want to affect how something looks. You can edit that here in the costumes menu. And the sounds, we won't do too much of that, but you can just edit whatever sound effects you have available. Alright, so why don't we just go ahead and get started. So you've got your character here. So like I said, in the Space Arcade game, we have a main character, we have the projectile, which was the laser, and we have the obstacles. Those are basically the three main elements, so we're going to work with that. So why don't we start with collecting those first. So I'm just going to delete Scratch Cat, so I've got completely blank. I'm going to pick my main character. So in this case, I'll pick a beetle. It'll be a little beetle that flies around when I move the arrow keys. So I'm going to be showing you how to set that up as well. I would say let's bring down the size here. If you go down here, change this to maybe 50. It'll just make it smaller, give us more of a scale to work with. Okay, so I'm going to have my beetle shoot. Let's see. I'm going to have the beetle shoot. Plenty to choose from, of course. So I'm going to say he's shooting some bread loaves, I'd say. We can actually, why don't we make some lasers so I can show you how to edit each sprite. So you can pick any of the sprites from the menu here. You'll just click on it, click costumes, and we can just go ahead and erase this with our mouse. Okay, and then with the paintbrush, maybe select like a red color. Okay, and I can just really just draw a line here, and that works just the same as a laser. So that bread sprite is now just a laser, and we're just going to name it that here in the sprite name. It's always good to stay organized when you're making a project. Okay, So don't worry where this is placed for now. We're going to tell the game where to place all these things as we go. The next sprite we're going to need, as you can see in the guides provided, is a obstacle. So what is flying at the beetle in order to squash it? I'm going to say maybe some bats. Bats are looking for the beetle because they're hungry. So the bat doesn't need to be renamed, but I will bring this down to maybe about 75, just because, you know, they're kind of big. So they'll be flying around. All right. So maybe that's good enough for now. Well, actually, why don't we go ahead and add a backdrop? What is the scene? What is the world that they're kind of residing in? Here we go. I'm going to pick the jungle. All right, so the beetle's around the jungle, shooting the bats. Okay, so the first step is you're going to click on your main character, in my case, the beetle. Okay, all right, so we got our beetle. So the first step is we're going to be dragging a bunch of blocks into the play space. Now, if you look at the guide provided on the Google Classroom, you'll see a kind of cheat sheet on what the excuse me, I'm just pulling up the guide here. Where is it? So you'll see on the game guide there's this cheat sheet of sorts. This is kind of a reference tool for you so that while you're working on your project, you can add these blocks and check to make sure they're the right ones as you go. You know, it's there to help you learn and to help you kind of understand how these blocks work. And so in doing so, you'll be placing these blocks into the workspace and then proceeding. So here's our main character, in our case the beetle, and I'm just going to be dragging these blocks into the play area. So first one is when green flag is clicked. So the big thing with coding, if you don't already kind of understand this, is that with coding it's a lot of if and then kind of scenarios. So if I click this, then something else will happen. So when this green flag is clicked, that's basically saying that the game is going to start and start everything else. It's just a starting point, really. So your start button or go button. So the first thing is that. All right, so then the next is when the green flag is clicked, let's have the beetle start in a certain point. So that is going to be right here. We're going to take this blue block and drag it right under, and it'll say go to X number and Y with a number. Another thing to understand about Scratch is that it works in a grid-based system. So even though your character is floating in this space, there's all these little squares. And depending on where your character is, that'll depend on where the X and Y numbers are going to be. So you may learn this you know, in your math classes, that X is along the horizontal kind of coordinates and Y is along these vertical coordinates. So if the character was over here, then it would be negative X and Y something. So let me just kind of show you what that'll look like. So if so before I put this on, if you'll see over here on the left in the coordinates, it's already saying where the beetle is placed. So if I go somewhere in the center, we might see 0, 0. But if you just place it where you know you want to get it to start, then that'll be the coordinates that you need. So looks like we've got about negative 88 by negative 4, and that's just the place where this is going to be starting. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a loop system. This is so that when we press the arrow keys, our character will move. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to the dark orange blocks over here. You can also access the blocks with the scroll wheel, just to keep that in mind, or you can fast click. So dark orange, which is control, we're going to create a forever loop. That means this code is just going to be forever cycling, looking for inputs. So then the next one is going to be an if then. Alright, so you see we got a loop inside of a loop. Just keep in mind it's not below, but just right inside of the forever loop. Okay, and then we're going to go down to our sensing blocks. These are sensing for different things that are happening. We're going to look for the key pressed. Okay, and you can see this drop down arrow. It'll show different arrow keys. And let me just back up here in a second. If you saw this dark orange area, that means that you can put things inside of it. So we've got our light blue block here. We're just going to place that inside, and then we can edit what button to push. So we're going to just say the up arrow. So if the up arrow is pressed, then what happens? So we're going to change one of the variables. So go to the dark blue blocks. We're going to say change y, which is up and down, like we said with vertical. We're looking for change y by. There it is. Change y by 10. And I'm just going to bring this down to 5. Alright, so now we've got our first code block. And we're going to keep adding to this, but I'm just going to show you. It's always good to test as you go, just to make sure things work. I'm going to click the green flag. And when I hit the arrow key, you'll see the beetle moves up. But if I try any other arrow keys, it's not working. So we need to add more inputs, but it's good. We finally got that to work. So we're going to hit stop just to reset everything. Again, this thing is up here, right? It doesn't matter, because when you hit the green flag, it's going to start right here, right where we said it should start with the coordinates. Okay, so the next block loop that we're going to do is another if-then loop, and we're going to do right under the loop we already made. And essentially we're going to make 3 more of these input loops. Okay, so we're going to go down to sensing. And again, feel free to pause this video at any time to just kind of freeze the frame so that you can take a look at, you know, if I'm going too fast or if you just need a second. You're always welcome to just pause it and then take a breath, maybe figure out what you need to fix first before moving on. Okay, so then we're going to add another key pressed, this time the down arrow. Go back up to the blue motion block and change y by. Alright, so one thing here, we want to make sure it says a negative number, so I'm just going to say -5. The reason is, and like I said, oh, wrong button here. Like I showed in the coordinates, we've got y going up and y going down. Anytime you have something going a certain direction, you want to make sure it's positive or negative. So in our case, we already have change y by 5 and it goes up. But this time we want to change y by -5, which means it's going to be going down. And same case with left and right. We're going to change x by y, or change x by 5, it'll go to the right, and change x by -5, it'll go to the left. So, alright, -5, down arrow, just going to check it real quick. Yep, up and down. We got our beetle moving up and down. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get those inputs in real quick. Getting an if-then loop right under the previous loop that we made. Okay, and getting into sensing when key is pressed. And this time we're going to do the left arrow key and the motion blocks. And then here's a mistake that I see often. You want to make sure it's the X when we're talking about left and right. So with the left arrow, we want it to make sure it says the X coordinate. Easy mistake, I made it my first time. It's totally okay. So we're going to the left, we're going to do -5. And for our next loop on the if-then, okay. Another thing is you can scroll, and if you click your middle mouse button, you can actually pan through the code. Just a side note. Alright, so then we're going to put this here, change this to the right arrow, and then change x by, there we go, and this time it's going to be 5. Alright, so we've got all our inputs in. I'm just going to go ahead and test it real quick. We've got up, down, to the right, and to the left. We have a full range of motion. So this is the very first primitive controller. Alright, and now that's all set. Alright, so now we can move on to the next thing. So we're going to move on to the projectile. We're going to make this bug shoot some lasers. So first, yeah, it doesn't really matter where this is. That can just be floating as is, because first thing we're going to do, and if you look at the guide here, we've got the laser projectile sprite. Again, everything is here for you to read and follow along with. The video is here to just kind of help guide you through it. So we're going to start with the green flag. When green flag is clicked, we're going to do some purple blocks and then some more loops. So first block is when green flag is clicked. Okay, and then let's go to these dark purple blocks. As you can see, these are categorized by color, but they also have different meanings. So any purple blocks are usually going to have to deal with the way something looks. Pink or light purple is sound, obviously, and of course, like as you can see, different ones. Motion, dark blue deals with motion. It's just good to kind of keep in mind in case you're lost. So next one is going to be a hide block. This way, when we click the button, it's gone, it's not in the way, it's ready to be spawned elsewhere. So then we're going to add, this is just kind of a formality, kind of a loophole to get rid of some errors later on, but we're going to add a go to front layer block. That's going to go right under the hide block. This is just so that it's not hidden anywhere else, and we can see it right when it spawns when we press the spacebar. Because what we're going to want to do is tell the code, when I press the spacebar, show the laser and shoot it, essentially. So the next loop is going to be a forever loop. And we're going to put a bunch of stuff in here. Okay, so we're going to start with an if-then loop. Okay, and we're going to go down to the sensing block and spacebar. That's what we want. So when we click the spacebar, we get some lasers. Okay, and then go to motion. Okay, so on the guide, you'll see it's kind of a long blue block. But if you look closely, it's just a go to X, and then there's something that's filled in, and then a Y, and something else is filled in. So this is something that took me a second to figure out, but we're going to start with a go to X block. And the cool thing about these white bubbles is we can actually fill those with other things. So if we go to the sensing blocks, we're going to look for a kind of double variable type bubble, and that's going to be right here. It's going to start out saying backdrop and stage, but it's saying it's trying to reference two items. So we're going to put both of these inside of the white bubbles. Okay, so then we're going to click the second bubble of each of these sub bubbles. We're getting kind of deep into the coding here, but as soon as we get this done, we won't have to do it again. So for the first one, we're going to click beetle. Okay, and for the next one, we're also going to click beetle, and you'll see it automatically changes. And what this is saying is go to, when the space bar is pressed, go to the X position of the beetle. Also, go to the Y position of the beetle. That's what these two bubbles are for. We just need to make sure that the Y position says the Y position. So we want X and X of beetle, Y, Y of beetle. Just something to look out for, or else it'll spawn somewhere where we don't want it to spawn. Okay, so next what we'll do is we're going to have the next block, which is create clone of myself. That's going to go directly under this long blue block that we made. And then we're going to do one more thing just so that we don't have a lot of lasers shooting out. We don't want too many lasers. We're going to say wait until, and that's going to go right underneath the clone of myself block. Now we have a dark orange space, that means we need to fill something in. So we're going to take a green block. These are called operators. They're just kind of meant to change some of the numbers as things happen. So we want one that says not with an empty bubble. And then we're going to fill in another bubble. So then what we're going to do is we're going to say when the key spacebar is pressed. This is so that if you hold down the spacebar or you push it too many times, it doesn't spawn too many lasers. It's a little bit of game balancing for you. You know, sometimes game developers, they develop things and the gameplay is a little bit too easy, if you can understand, and so they make things to make it a little bit more challenging, and that's kind of what makes games fun sometimes. So we want to add a second sector of blocks. These are just a little bit different set of rules so that the code can work properly. So what we want to find is a control block, and it's going to be when I start as a clone, because we're making clones of the laser. So when I start as a clone, which is the laser, we want to show it immediately, and that is a purple block. So once we have that set, we're going to go to the control blocks, and we're looking for a repeat until loop that looks like this with the shaded diamond inside. And then we're going to go to the green blocks, which are operators. We're going to select one of these three, the top one in fact. You'll learn these in your math classes, but these are greater than, less than, and equal symbols. This is really just comparing two numbers. So we're going to take greater than 50, okay? And then we're going to take a blue. It's going to be at the bottom. It's going to be an X position bubble. That's going to go inside the white block, okay? And then this number, we're going to want to change this to 200. So it's going to look for the X coordinate, and once it's at 200, we're going to say do something. Okay. So then the next block is we're going to look for change X by a number. So we'll do 10. Let's wrap this up to 15. This is just changing the X coordinate by 15 points. And finally, at the control, we're going to scroll down to delete this clone, because we are dealing with a clone of a laser. Okay, and let's go and see if this shoots. Perfect. Alright, so I'm pressing the space bar. We got some good lasers flying through the air. Now, if you've tried this, if you've gone through these steps and it still hasn't worked, sometimes it's good to just kind of take the whole block apart and start again. Just going through those steps, because sometimes it's easy to miss something, just like a minor detail. Maybe you've got a similar block, but it's not the right one. It's best to just go through trial and error. So another thing you might want to do is add some sound whenever you shoot the laser. So then we'll go to the beetle, and then we will go to when I start as clone. Okay. Or, oh, actually, no, it's going to be when the thing is clicked, I believe. Yeah, we're looking for a when spacebar is clicked. There it is. So when that is pressed, create clone of laser. So it says myself, but we're going to change it to laser. And then we want it to play a sound. So play sound until then. Okay. So there's a lot of sounds. We can record one. Let's see what pop sounds like. I'm pretty happy with that. It's a little loud. So with the beetle selected, I'm going to go to the sounds, and it recognizes that the pop is in its kind of code. We're just going to make this a softer sound. There we go, that's better. Alright, so we've got our beetle, our laser. Now let's get some flying bats. Before we get started on the bat, we are going to make a variable. Okay, so that's at the bottom. These are darker orange. Just click the make variable button. We're going to type in score. It's going to affect all sprites. You'll see it appears right up here. It's just a score, right? It's just keeping track of a number. And that'll come into play later. So when we go to our bat, One thing to do is we can check out our game guide. Here it is, the flying obstacle sprite. In our case, it's a bat. We're going to have to go through these steps. I have a little tip here that says make sure you create the code, the score block, which we just did, which is good. If you forget to do that at some point, it's okay. You can always go back and do it. So I'm just going to go through and do these steps. So our first block is, and we're dealing with the bat, right? When I start with the green flag clicked, we're going to hide it right away just because we're spawning different characters. Okay. And we're going to set the score to 0, and that's in variables. So now that we have score, it'll show up in this list. So I'm going to set my variable to 0, and it says my variable, we're going to click on score. So it's going to set that score to 0. Just when you're starting a new game, we'll start at 0 points. Okay, the next loop is going to be a forever loop. Okay, and then we're going to create the clone of myself, which is the bat. There we go. And next on our list is we want to wait 1 second just so that the player isn't overloaded with too many bats. Alright, so we're just going to have it wait 1 second. Alright, and then when I start as a clone is what we're looking for. Here it is in the darker orange. So when the bat starts as a clone, because we are spawning it, we want to show it, of course, instead of hide. And then we're going to want to go to two coordinates. So go to X and go to Y. So it's going to go right here. And we're going to fill in this Y bubble with something. But for starters, for X, we're going to say about 180, which is about in this region. Okay, and then for Y, we're going to do a random number just so that it spawns somewhere in this area. So we're going to say pick random number from, we'll say 200 to negative 225. So that's anywhere in this kind of quadrant it's going to spawn. Hopefully, if we've done all the code correctly, which I'm sure we'll find out. So then the next block is we want it to point towards the beetle. Okay, so point towards block, it's going to say mouse pointer, but when we drop it in, select it and say beetle. Okay, and then we're going to add a loop, and it's going to be a repeat until loop. Let's see, there it is. And we're going to add a operator, and this time it's going to be less than bubble, right? So less than negative 225, less than this number, okay? So it's going to be looking for numbers over here. And that's going to be the X position, and we're going to go to motion, go to the X position bubbles, and place that right there. And then we're going to have it move about, let's say 5 steps. Here we go, move 5 steps. And we're going to, well, it says 10, but we're going to change it to 5. And then we're going to go to events, and actually loops in the control, and we're going to do another loop. And this is when the laser touches the bat, what happens. So if, it's going to go right under move, if, in the sensing blocks, if touching, and it says mouse pointer, but we're going to say if touching the laser, see there. We're going to change something. Let's go down to variables. Change my variable by number, which is 1 it says, but we're going to say change the score by 10. So if we read this code, it says if touching the laser, then change score by 10. And then delete the clone because we shot it with the laser, and it is going to be deleted. And another thing, we need to put another delete clone block here just in case it doesn't get deleted, because sometimes code can kind of slip through the cracks, and just to be sure, this won't mess it up, but we're just going to make sure it gets deleted because we want to make sure when we shoot it, it's gone. Okay, so let's go and test this out. moving, shooting the laser, and nothing's spawning just yet. Let's see, what did we miss? Are we hiding it? No. Show, hide, go to. Ah, I see. Okay, so delete clone. Here we go. It was deleting the clone before it was touching the laser. Alright. So now that we've got it, see, one block could have changed everything. So now, when I shoot, we got our lasers shooting. The bats are trying to hit us, but we are shooting them. So, again, my delete block was down here when it should have been right below the change score. That's an easy mistake. Just make sure your blocks are where they need to be. Okay, so we pretty much have a basic game. We've got our character, he's shooting lasers at the obstacles. We're just going to add a couple more things, just kind of complete the package and complete the kind of the experience of our game. So we want to create a start and end screen. So in the list I have here, start screen sprite and end screen sprite. We're going to have to create two new sprites, and they're just going to say something like, let's start, you have 30 seconds, or something like that. And actually it'll be a good way to make a timer. So what we'll do is, let's see, can we just create, yes, okay, so if you hit paint, it'll just create a new sprite, which is good. We'll just name this one start sprite. Okay, and we're going to create another one, and this will say end sprite. Okay, start and end of the game. So for the start one, I'm just going to make a white box. You can edit the different properties of the box here. I'm just going to bring this down to white with an outline of black, which is fine. Okay, it's going to show up on our screen. And in text, I'll make maybe some green text. You can adjust the colors with this variable changer. Click, and then we'll just say start game. Okay, that'll be the first kind of words. Okay, and we can make it bigger, which is cool. And then we're going to click again on the text tool and click right here. And we'll say, like, you have 30 seconds. Alright, so there's that one. And when we'll adjust the code on that sprite here in a second. And let's get the next one. Okay. Oops. So this is for the end screen. It's showing up right there. We're going to do a white box again with a black outline. Okay. Go. And this one can just say time's up. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll make this red text because usually it's associated with things being done. So time's up. Perfect. And this mouse button we can change so that we can move it and scale it. That's what these bubbles do. And if you just click on the text, we can move it wherever we want to. Alright, so now, and we're in the costume sprite. So let's go to the start sprite. And you'll see these are in the way, but that's okay. We'll be able to change that. So with the start sprite, our code says a few things, not too much, nothing we can't handle. We'll add the green flag when I start. We will show it. Okay, and then we want it to go to the front layer, which is in the purple blocks. Let's see, go to front layer. There it is. That way it's in front of everything. It's the start screen, of course. Okay, and then we're going to create a small, tiny event. When this sprite is clicked, which is, again, here, I'm just going to hide this for sake. So, when the start sprite is clicked, what is going to happen? Well, first, it's going to hide because we're starting the game. Then what we're going to do is we'll go down to the variables, and we're going to say set score to 0, just so that everything sets to 0. Start the game. We are at 0 points, and we need to get as much as we can. Okay, so that's fine. We'll go ahead and click the green button, start, and we're good to go. Game's still working, nothing's broken. So then we'll go to our end screen sprite. We've got the code ready, and this one is going to be in events. It's going to be a when with a drop down button. Okay, and this one's going to say timer, but first, well, it'll say loudness, but you need to click on timer. So when the timer reaches a certain number, we're just going to say 30 seconds. Right now it was set at 10. So when the timer reaches 30 seconds, it's going to show time's up. So in the purple blocks, we'll hit show. Okay, and we're going to go to events, and we want to make sure the game stops. Is that an event? Oh no, it's okay, it's in control, dark orange. This one says stop all. This just stops everything that's happening. The game is over. Okay, and then finally, in case you want to try again, start the game again, when the green flag is clicked after that, it will hide the game over or time's up block. Alright, so just to go through this. When it's clicked, now I have 30 seconds, and it's going to be going through a 30-second timer, and I can shoot as much as I want. Let's see how much points I can get. Just 30 seconds. Doing pretty good. I can even do some rapid fire, which is nice. The bats don't have a chance, and time's up. Alright, 240 points. And that concludes our Space Arcade shooter type tutorial. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the Google Classroom, and I'm happy to help you. I'm going to be meeting every Monday at 4 p.m. On the Google Hangouts video call. So I can look at your screen, you can look at my screen to kind of compare, or I can help walk you through any of the trouble you're having. So yeah, have a good day. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. One last thing is make sure that, yes, you did put in your name. It auto-saves every minute. You can hit save now just to be sure. If you go to this folder up here, you can see my stuff, which is the group of the Eagle coding crew that we have set up. You'll see the projects. There's mine. It says Julio. There's another example game, which I'll be making a tutorial for in the future. But you can go ahead and get started on it if you click on a game that you see that you like. If you click see inside, you can look at the code and get started on it. More importantly, just make sure that it's saved and you can see your game. You can look at other people's games. That way you can come back to it if you need to. So you can play it immediately if you want to. But if you want to get to work, you click see inside and you're good to go. Alright, thanks.